General Hospital spoilers tease that TJ Ashford may soon reemerge in Port Charles with a stunning new companion and a child in tow, setting the stage for heartache, revelations, and shifting alliances. For those who've wondered what lies behind TJ's sudden disappearance following the painful end of his relationship with Molly Lansing Davis, prepare for a whirlwind return that will test old bonds, ignite fresh drama, and ultimately reshape Molly's world in ways she never anticipated. Ever since TJ Ashford slipped out of Port Charles under the guise of business meetings, fans have speculated that something deeper was at play. In truth, TJ's trips were less about corporate strategy sessions and more about him trying to escape the crushing grief of losing Molly, the woman he'd loved since adolescence and with whom he'd envisioned a future filled with children and shared dreams. Their two heartbreaking failed surrogacies had driven an unspoken wedge between them, each loss a reminder of what neither could give the other, a child born of their own bodies. The arguments, once infrequent and minor, had grown torrid and unrelenting. What began as simple differences of opinion over treatment protocols and clinic choices morphed into midnight shouting matches that left both of them teary, exhausted, and questioning whether love alone could heal such wounds. As TJ boarded flight after flight, he carried with him a backpack loaded not just with toiletries and a change of clothes, but a suitcase of regrets and what-ifs. Every mile he logged away from Port Charles was meant to dull the ache of Molly's absence, yet the ache only deepened until, in desperation, he found himself wandering into dimly lit dive bars on the outskirts of unfamiliar towns. There, lonely musicians played blues standards, and weary patrons nursed drinks more potent than their sorrows. It was in one such bar that TJ first encountered the dancer, a woman whose movements behind the club's scant stage lights spoke of raw emotion and untold stories. She was like a flame, vibrant, unpredictable, impossible to deny. When TJ introduced himself after her set, his voice quavered with a mixture of guilt and longing. The dancer, let's call her Serena, smiled with the kind of warmth that can thaw even the coldest heart. They shared drinks and stories deep into the night, their laughter punctuated by confessions of pain. Serena had lost her own share of hope, a tumultuous childhood, a string of broken relationships, a yearning for stability that had always eluded her. In TJ, she saw someone equally adrift, a kindred spirit trying to fill a void too wide to cross alone. Their affair began tentatively, a half-hearted flirtation over cocktails, a spontaneous dance on a sticky hardwood floor. But loneliness has a way of kindling passion, and soon they were entwined in a bond that felt as natural as breath. TJ told her about Molly, about the love that had once been the axis of his world, and the surrogacy failures that had shattered his confidence. Serena listened without judgment, offering him solace and understanding. In return, she allowed him a glimpse into her own heartaches. Their vulnerability bred intimacy, and intimacy bloomed into love, or something that felt very much like it. When Serena discovered she was pregnant, the news arrived as both a miracle and a complication. TJ, still reeling from loss, was terrified to hope again, terrified to fail a child he already carried only in possibility. Yet when the ultrasound technician muttered, "There's a heartbeat," something inside him shifted. He saw the life flickering on the screen as a second chance, the ultimate proof that hope could survive despair. He and Serena decided to welcome the baby, a son, into the world, determined to forge a family that neither had believed possible. As the months passed, TJ's calls to Molly went unanswered or were met with polite distance. Molly could not bear to reopen wounds neither of them had healed. She immersed herself in work, in Cody Bell's unwavering friendship, in every distraction short of confronting the pain that TJ had left behind. Meanwhile, TJ and Serena prepared for parenthood, painting a nursery in soft hues and selecting names whispered in joyous anticipation. Despite the unorthodox circumstances, TJ felt more alive than he had in years. He was a father at last, and the glee that lightened his steps was impossible to hide. But there was no escaping the bonds of Port Charles forever. Responsibility and loyalty pulled at TJ's heart. He owed Molly an explanation. And perhaps an apology. More pressingly, he felt an overwhelming need to legitimize his new family, to offer Serena the respect she'd earned, and to give their son the stability only a father's name and a mother's vows could provide. And so TJ announced his return, planning to stage a wedding with Serena and to introduce his son to the mother who had once embodied his every hope. The morning TJ rolled into town, the streets seemed peculiarly silent, as though Port Charles itself held its breath. Molly was leaving the hospital, checking in for her midday shift, when she first saw them. TJ, in a crisp suit that accentuated every notion of intent, Serena, radiant in a simple dress and cradling a bundle swaddled in soft blankets. TJ's eyes met Molly's across the parking lot, and 1,000 memories collided in that instant. First kisses under autumn trees, late-night study sessions, hospital corridors echoing with shared dreams of children. Molly managed a brittle smile as TJ stepped forward. "Molly," he said softly, "I want you to meet my family." Words failed Molly as Serena extended a gentle hand, introducing herself with quiet dignity. Then the baby emerged from Serena's arms, a chubby-cheeked boy who peered up at Molly with curious, unguarded eyes. He was impossibly perfect, vulnerable, and real, the living embodiment of all the hope TJ had ever carried. Molly's throat constricted. She lifted a trembling hand to stroke the infant's cheek, tears springing unbidden. "He's beautiful," she whispered, voice cracking. "Congratulations, TJ." But beneath her gracious words, Molly's heart fractured. Each syllable was laced with the sharp sting of betrayal. TJ had moved on, found solace in another woman, and fathered a child while she, Molly, had been left to confront her own emptiness. She forced herself to smile as the trio exchanged pleasantries with hospital staff, but every breath felt as though she were drowning in memories of what might have been. The specter of Cody Bell's supportive presence loomed large. He stood nearby, concern etched on his face, ready to catch Molly should she collapse under the weight of her emotions. Molly had always admired Cody's steadfast kindness. He'd been there through her highs, a promotion here, a charity gala there, and through her lows, most notably the agony of losing those surrogacy pregnancies. He'd shown up at the hospital after every miscarriage, bringing coffee, offering an empathetic ear, never judging. Molly had brushed aside his attentions as friendly support, but now, in the aftershock of TJ's return, she realized how much she relied on him. His calm voice, his gentle touch on her back, the way he handed her tissues when her composure unraveled, these were lifelines she had taken for granted. As TJ and Serena guided their son toward a car seat, Molly felt the fragile veil between sorrow and resentment slip. She excused herself and fled to the hospital chapel, where the morning sun filtered through stained glass, painting the pews in kaleidoscopic light. Sliding into a pew at the back, Molly pressed her palms to her eyes, fighting the tidal wave of grief. She thought of TJ's promises, of the nights they had lain awake, whispering plans for their future. She thought of the children they had lost together and the child he now carried for someone else. The injustice of it seared her soul. In the hush, Cody found her. He'd followed at a respectful distance, worried that Molly would unmoor herself without a friend's steady hand. He settled beside her, offering mostly silence, allowing her to breathe, to mourn. After a time, Molly spoke, her voice raw. He has a son, Cody. TJ has a son." Tears brimmed in her eyes. How could he do that? How could he move on so fast? Cody reached out, taking her hand. "He's hurt too," he said gently. "But that doesn't make it any easier to watch." He paused, choosing his words. "You deserve someone who fights for you just as hard." Molly turned to him, seeking solace in living eyes rather than distant memories. Cody's expression was earnest, compassionate, an anchor in her storm. As they sat together in the rainbow of light, Molly realized that her world was shifting. She owed TJ gratitude for the love they'd shared, but her heart was raw, open to the possibility that someone who'd never abandoned her in her darkest moments, might finally be what she needed. Meanwhile, TJ and Serena returned to a modest apartment near the docks, the baby asleep in his car seat. Serena sensed the tension lingering in TJ's posture, the guilt, the fear that his return had reopened fresh wounds. She rested a hand on his arm. "Thank you for doing this," she said softly. "I know it wasn't easy." TJ closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "You and our son deserve the best. I had to face my past to build a future with you." He kissed her forehead, and in that moment, Serena knew that despite the challenges ahead, Molly's inevitable reaction, Port Charles's small-town scrutiny, the logistical nightmare of blending families, they would face them together. Back at the hospital, word of TJ's return spread swiftly. Nurses gossiped in hushed tones, doctors exchanged knowing glances, and patients looked up in wonder when they spotted TJ wheeling Serena down the corridor. Molly, wiping away tears, returned to her rounds with a compartmentalized focus, professional and warm, but her mind danced dangerously close to memories she'd vowed to leave behind. Each time she passed Cody's station, he offered her a reassuring nod. Each time she saw TJ's name badge, a pang of what could have been threatened to undo her carefully built composure. That evening, Molly confided in her roommate at the nurse's dorm, a fellow nurse who listened with sympathetic sorrow. "I thought I was over him," Molly admitted, voice quivering. "But seeing him with her and that baby, it's like a knife stabbing through my chest." Her friend patted her hand. "You loved him, Molly. And that love doesn't disappear overnight. But you also deserve happiness. Maybe this is a sign that you need to find it elsewhere." Molly considered the words long after her friend had left, the dorm growing silent around her. She realized that watching TJ's new life unfold was like observing a door closing, a door through which she might never pass again. But closing doors often precedes the opening of new ones. And standing on the threshold, she felt a mixture of dread and hope. In the days that followed, TJ's attempts at normalcy in Port Charles met unexpected obstacles. The press caught wind of his wedding plans, and tabloids began speculating about the identity of his mystery fiancée. Serena, unaccustomed to the glare of public attention, recoiled when paparazzi photographers snapped photos outside her apartment. TJ, protective and resolute, arranged for private security and politely but firmly denied interviews. Yet the undercurrent of gossip, why did Molly let TJ go? Is Molly still hung up on him? Threatened to overshadow the joy he shared with his new family. Molly, for her part, found herself at a crossroads. Cody's support had grown more substantial. He insisted on bringing her dinners, invited her on lunchtime walks, and even offered to help with volunteer projects at GH's community outreach program, activities Molly had once dreamed of tackling with TJ by her side. At first, she resisted the invitations, fearful that replacing one form of comfort with another would feel disloyal to the memories she held sacred. But as the sting of seeing TJ with Serena and their son continued to pulse, Molly realized that Cody's presence was less of a replacement and more of a revelation, that she still had a chance at love, at family, at healing. One late afternoon, as a spring rain pattered against the hospital's windows, Cody escorted Molly to the rooftop garden, a secluded spot where they could overlook the city without interruption. Mossy benches and potted blooms created an oasis above the bustling wards. Cody handed Molly a cup of tea. She wrapped her gloved hands around the warmth. He sat beside her, a respectful distance apart, and waited until she spoke. "Molly," Cody began, voice steady, "I know this has been hard. I can't pretend to know what you're going through. But I want you to know, I'm here for you no matter what." Molly looked at him, raw vulnerability in her eyes. I appreciate that, Cody. More than you know. She exhaled, bracing for a confession she hadn't anticipated. I think I'm ready to let go. Cody's gaze sharpened. Let go. Let go of the idea that my life won't be full without TJ, she explained. I need to open my heart to possibilities I've been too afraid to consider. Cody reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle, unhurried, a promise rather than a demand. I'd be honored to be part of your life, he said softly. Whatever you need, friendship, support, if there's room in your heart for more, I'm here. Molly felt tears welling again, but this time they were tempered with relief. She nodded, a fragile smile curving her lips. Thank you, Cody. I think I'd like that. Meanwhile, TJ and Serena pressed on with wedding preparations. The ceremony was planned for a private chapel at Windermere, chosen for its intimacy and refuge from prying eyes. TJ wanted to honor their love with something meaningful rather than ostentatious, and Serena agreed. They invited only close friends and a handful of colleagues who had stood by them through the months of secrecy: Lois Cerullo, Hamilton Finn, and a few members of TJ's former police unit. Molly's name lingered on the invitation list for longer than TJ cared to admit, but eventually he crossed it off, unwilling to subject her to further pain. On the eve of the wedding, Serena hosted a small gathering at her apartment. Candles flickered, gentle laughter filled the rooms, and the baby slept in a cradle beneath a mobile of sailboats. TJ looked around, heart full, arms wrapped around Serena's waist. I never imagined I'd find happiness again, he whispered. But you, and our son, you saved me. Serena tilted her head, her eyes shimmering. We saved each other. Yet as night deepened, TJ found himself unable to close his eyes. Memories intruded, the sound of Molly's laughter in the gym, the way she scolded him when he spilled coffee on her scrubs, the hope in her eyes as they'd watched ultrasound images flicker across a screen. He wondered what Molly was doing at that very moment. Was she at home, searching for solace in work? Or had she retreated completely, closing him and their past behind her forever? On wedding day, the sky was a crisp blue, cherry blossoms drifting on a gentle breeze. Serena descended the chapel's steps in a simple white gown, hair braided with tiny flowers. TJ waited at the altar, nerves coiled in his chest. As she approached, his gaze locked on hers, and the world fell away, until the chapel doors creaked open again. To everyone's astonishment, Molly stood in the doorway. She wore a tailored navy suit, professional, composed, and held a single white rose. A hush rippled through the small congregation. TJ's breath caught. Serena's hand tightened on his arm. Molly's gaze swept the room, then settled on TJ. In that instant, the past and present collided. Molly stepped forward, rose extended. Congratulations, she said, voice steady but soft. I came to wish you both well. TJ's eyes brimmed. Molly, Serena moved to her side, equally gracious. Thank you for coming. Molly handed the rose to Serena, who placed it among other blooms at the altar. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. Molly turned to TJ. And you, TJ Ashford, thank you for the life we shared. It made me who I am today. Then, with a last, lingering look, equal parts sorrow and acceptance, she retreated. The wedding proceeded, vows exchanged, rings slipped onto trembling fingers. Yet beneath the ceremony's joy lay an undercurrent of catharsis. Molly's presence had offered TJ closure even as it reopened old wounds. After the service, TJ and Serena craned their necks to glance at the stained glass windows, picturing Molly's silhouette against the light. They held hands, resolving that their family would be the center of their world, no shadows from the past allowed. In the weeks that followed, Port Charles adjusted to its new reality. Molly and Cody's friendship blossomed into something more, a tentative romance built on mutual respect, shared grief, and hopes for the future. They took long walks along the docks, volunteered together at patient outreach and discovered laughter beyond the boundaries of heartbreak. Molly found herself opening up to Cody in ways she'd only dreamed of with TJ. There was no rush, no pressure, only the gentle progression of two hearts healing together. TJ, Serena, and their son, named Michael, in honor of TJ's late grandfather, settled into a cozy home near the hospital. TJ resumed his nursing duties part-time, balancing shifts with fatherly responsibilities. Serena launched a dance school for underprivileged youth, channeling her own struggles into mentorship and empowerment. They weathered the occasional gossip or raised eyebrow from old acquaintances, but time and genuine love proved more resilient than idle speculation. As the seasons changed, Molly found herself watching a familiar sunrise from the hospital rooftop, alone but not lonely. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the love that blossomed and withered, the secrets that almost destroyed everything, and the new love that had grown from the ashes. Cody's hand slipped into hers, a silent vow of presence and patience. Molly turned to him, smiling fully for the first time in months. "I think I'm ready," she said. He kissed her forehead. "I've been ready for you for a long time." And so, in Port Charles, a town rife with secrets, second chances, and drama at every turn, new stories took root. TJ's return had shattered old dreams, but, in the process, had paved the way for unexpected futures. Molly and Cody's bond, built on genuine understanding, offered a roadmap for healing. Serena and TJ, once fugitives from their past, now stood firmly in the light of their own choosing. Each character found that while love can break you, it can also rebuild you stronger than before. In the ever-unfolding tapestry of General Hospital, where every whispered spoiler hints at heartbreak or hope, one truth remains constant. Life's greatest dramas are written by the choices we make and the courage to face whatever comes next.